Rylan moved carefully through the ruins of the old city, his boots crunching over broken glass and cracked stone. The air was dry, dusty, and cold, and the sky was always covered with gray clouds. It had been years since the war between alien species and humans ended, but the damage was still everywhere. Buildings stood half destroyed, metal structures rusted and bent, and the ground was scattered with debris. Life here was harsh, but Rylan had learned to survive. He carried a small pack with only a few supplies. Food was the hardest thing to find. That day, after hours of searching, he found one energy bar hidden under the wreckage of a broken stall. It wasn't much, but to Rylan, it was life. His stomach had been empty for 2 days, and his body felt weak, but the energy bar gave him a little hope. He decided to sit in a quiet corner of the ruins, against a half-broken wall, and enjoy the small meal before nightfall. As he sat, ready to open the bar, he heard a sound, soft, weak breathing. It was faint, but nearby. Rylan froze, his senses alert. Many dangers still existed in the ruins. But this breathing, it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded ... scared. Slowly, Rylan stood up and followed the sound. He walked carefully around a fallen pillar, his eyes scanning the shadows. Then he saw her, a tiny figure, thin and trembling, hidden under a broken piece of metal sheet. It was a little girl. Something like a girl, but not human. Our skin was a pale bluish color, almost glowing in the dark. She had large, bright eyes, but they looked hollow, almost lifeless. She was barely clothed, her body thin from hunger, and she shivered with every weak breath she took. Rylan stood there, watching her. She noticed him and flinched, trying to push herself deeper into the shadows. Her eyes were wide with fear. Rylan raised his hands slowly to show he meant no harm. "Hey, ... easy. I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly. The alien girl didn't respond. She just watched him, breathing heavily, too weak to move. Rylan looked at the energy bar in his hand. He was starving too. If he ate it, maybe he could survive another day. But as he looked at the little alien girl, he felt a heavy ache in his chest. She looked like she was on the edge of death. He crouched down, holding out the energy bar towards her. "Here, ... take it. You need this more than I do," he whispered. For a moment, the girl didn't move. She stared at the food with suspicion. Then at Rylan. Slowly, very slowly, she reached out with her tiny hand, her fingers shaking. She grabbed the bar and pulled it close, still watching him, not sure if it was a trick. Rylan smiled gently. "Go ahead, eat it." With great effort, the girl opened the wrapper with her weak hands and took a small bite. The moment the food touched her eyes widened. She chewed faster, taking bigger bites, as if her body remembered what it felt like to eat. She finished it quickly, her breathing still weak, but now her eyes had a small flicker of life. Rylan sat back against the wall, watching her. "What's your name, kid?" he asked. But she didn't answer. Maybe she didn't understand his language, or maybe she was just too weak to speak. They sat there in silence for a while. Rylan wanted to ask more questions, but he could see she was exhausted. Then suddenly loud footsteps echoed through the ruins. A patrol of alien soldiers, rough and cruel, appeared in the distance. They were looking for survivors, maybe to capture or kill. The little girl heard them too. Her eyes filled with panic. She looked at Rylan, then back at the sound. Without a word, she got up with the little strength she had and ran away into the shadows, disappearing through a crack in the walls. Rylan thought about stopping her, but he knew she was safer hiding. Moments later, the soldiers passed by, not noticing him hidden behind the broken wall. When they were gone, Rylan looked at the place where the girl had vanished. She was gone. Just like that. He sighed deeply, feeling both sadness and peace. He didn't know if she would survive, but at least she had a little more strength now. Rylan leaned back and closed his eyes. He was still hungry, still tired, but somehow he felt a little warmer inside. Maybe he would die here someday, but at least he did something right. Little did he know, that single act of kindness would not be forgotten, and that one day the girl would return stronger, and not alone. The years crawled by like shadows moving across a dead land. Rylan had long stopped counting how many days he had survived in the ruins. His bones ached, his hair had grown gray, and his spirit felt as worn as his tattered clothes. The world outside these ruins had moved on, but for Rylan, life was the same hunt for scraps by day, hide from raiders by night. But sometimes, when the nights were long and silent, he remembered her, the little alien girl. He often wondered if she'd survived, or if his last piece of food had only delayed the inevitable. Still, he hoped that, somewhere, she was alive, stronger, free. Then one night, everything changed. It began with a deep hum in the air, like a vibration under the skin, making the hairs on his neck stand. The sky, always covered in a thick curtain of clouds, suddenly lit up with blue flashes of light, as if lightning was trapped inside. Rylan grabbed his old rifle, though it barely worked now, and peered out from his hideout. Above the ruins, a massive ship was descending slowly, its surface smooth and shining like liquid metal. It wasn't like any human craft. It was too elegant, too silent, almost like a creature from the stars. Rylan's heart raced. A landing ramp extended from the ship with a gentle hiss, and armored figures began to step out. They were tall, their armor sleek and sharp, glowing faintly with symbols Rylan didn't understand. But what caught his breath was the figure leading them. Unlike the others, this one carried herself with grace, her steps light but commanding. As she walked forward, she stopped suddenly and turned her head directly towards Rylan's hiding spot. Rylan's blood ran cold. He knew he'd been seen. He raised his old rifle out of instinct, though he knew it was useless against whatever these beings were. Then, the figure did something unexpected. She removed her helmet, and the face underneath stunned Rylan into stillness. Her skin was smooth and pale blue. Her silver hair flowed freely, and her eyes, those large, bright eyes, shone. With the same spark, he remembered. She was no longer the starving child. She was a woman now taller, stronger, her gaze calm but piercing. She smiled gently. "Rylan," she spoke, her voice soft but clear. He stared, his mouth open, his voice trapped in his throat. How do you know my name?" She stepped forward. The other armored figures, keeping their distance. "Because you saved me once, a long time ago, when I had nothing. When I was no one, you gave me your last food." Rylan blinked, disbelief and confusion swirling inside him. That was you." She nodded. "I never forgot. My people took me in, trained me, gave me strength. But I always remembered the human who gave a starving stranger a chance to live. I vowed that I would return, and I would not come alone." Behind her, the alien warrior stood silent but proud. Their eyes reflected respect for their leader, but also for the man she spoke of. Rylan swallowed hard, feeling emotions he hadn't felt in years. Why come back now? Why me? The alien woman stepped closer, her smile fading into seriousness. "Because you are in danger. There are others coming worse than raiders, worse than anything you've seen. They are hunting you, Rylan, and I will not let them take the man who saved my life." Rylan's heart pounded. He had no idea why anyone would hunt him. He was just a broken man in a broken world. But one thing was clear. This was not a dream, and the little girl he saved had returned, stronger. And she was not alone. and somewhere deep inside, a spark lit within Rylan, once again the spark of hope. Rylan stood frozen, staring at the alien woman before him. The last time he'd seen her, she was just skin and bones, a trembling child hiding beneath the wreckage. But now she stood tall in her glimmering armor, a leader of warriors. Time had transformed her, but her eyes, those bright, haunting eyes, were the same. She smiled faintly, her silver hair glowing under the pale light of the ship behind her. "You gave me life when I had nothing," she said. "Now I give you protection, when the stars themselves seem to have forgotten you." Rylan shook his head slowly, still struggling to understand. "You remember, after all this time. I never forgot," she whispered, stepping closer. "Your kindness was a beacon in my darkest hour. I survived because of you, and I vowed that I would find you again, no matter how many years passed or how far I had to go." Her warriors remained silent, standing guard around them, their glowing weapons ready. Rylan glanced at them uneasily. Who are they? Who are you now?" She lifted her chin proudly. "I am Alira, commander of the Vyari Starborn Guard. My people took me in when I was weak and dying. I rose among them, not because I was stronger, but because I carried a debt in my heart. A human saved me, and so I became their voice to seek out humans. To seek out you?" Rylan's throat felt dry. "But why? I don't matter anymore. I'm just a relic in these ruins." Alira's eyes sharpened. "You matter more then. You know, the kindness you showed didn't just save Met, changed the future of my people. When I told them of your mercy, they saw humans differently, not as enemies, but as beings of value, of honor. You became a story among the Vayaria legend of compassion in a cruel universe." He chuckled bitterly. "A legend? I'm just a starving man who gave away his last meal." "Sometimes," she said softly, "the smallest acts echoed the loudest across time." Before Rylan could reply, Elira's face darkened. "But we didn't arrive only to thank you. There's danger coming, hunters from the dark sectors. They seek you, though I don't yet know why. They follow the scent of human blood, and they destroy everything in their path. I came to find you before they did." Rylan's hands tightened into fists. He'd faced death before, but this felt different, bigger, unstoppable. "Then why save me? You could have just stayed with your people, safe." Alira stepped even closer, her voice firm. "Because I swore I would repay your kindness, with my life, if needed. And because I believe, just as you saved Mew, still have a part to play in this galaxy, Rylan." For the first time in years, Rylan felt a strange stir in his chest. A reason to stand. A reason to matter again. He looked around at the Vyari warriors, at the powerful ships glowing in the sky, and then back at the girl No, the woman he once saved with a single piece of food, and he realized, she had returned not weak, not alone. She had come back as a force of change. Because of him, the wind howled through the ruined city as Alira stood before Rylan, her silver eyes gleaming with purpose. She carried herself like a queen of warriors, yet her gaze held something deeper: gratitude and an unbroken promise. She turned slightly, raising her hand. The Vyari soldiers responded immediately, projecting a holographic map from their gauntlets. Strange symbols glowed in the air, showing movement patterns and territories. Rylan squinted at it, barely understanding, but one thing was clear: he was at the center of it all. "They are coming for you," Alira said gravely. "A faction called the Zevik Raiders. Ruthless, ancient, and merciless. They believe you possess something left from the old wars, something hidden, something valuable." Rylan frowned. "I don't have anything. I'm no one." Alira shook her head. No one doesn't inspire legends, Rylon. There is something about you, even if you can't see it yet. And the Zevaks don't care if you remember or not, they'll burn everything just to make sure they get to you. Rylon's hands trembled slightly. He had survived so long by hiding, by staying forgotten. But now someone was hunting him for reasons he didn't even understand. "Why are you risking your people for me?" he asked, voice low. Alira stepped closer, her expression fierce. "Because you gave me life when you had nothing. Among the Vyari, that is a bond deeper than blood. A life debt cannot be ignored. I vowed that your enemies would be mine. If they want you, they must go through me." Her words struck something deep within Rylon, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. "I'm just a broken old scavenger," he muttered. She smiled faintly. "No, you are the reason I breathe, and I will not let the one who gave me hope be taken by monsters." Rylon looked at her, the girl he once saved now, a warrior commanding fleets. He realized this was no small act of gratitude. This was honor, a debt sacred to her people, and now her fight was his too. In that moment, the sky rumbled. The distant sound of engine Salian powerful echoed across the ruins. Alira's expression turned sharp. "They found us," she whispered. The real battle was about to begin, and Rylon was no longer standing alone. The ground trembled beneath Rylon's feet. A rating hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Lyra raised her hand, her warriors instantly forming a protective circle around them, their glowing weapons drawn dot above. The ruins, the clouds twisted unnaturally, split open by dark metallic ships descending like vultures. They weren't like Alira's elegant vessels. These ships were jagged, spiked, like creatures made from shadow and steel. The very sight of them chilled Rylon's bones. Alira's eyes narrowed. "The Zavak raiders. They're here sooner than expected." Rylon clenched his fists. "You said they're hunting me, but I don't even know why." Alira glanced at him, her voice low but urgent. "It's not always about what you know. Sometimes it's about what you carry unknowingly. Bloodlines, memories, codes. Something in you is important to them. Maybe even to the entire galaxy." Before Rylon could respond, the Zevik forces began to pour out of their ships, hulking beasts in dark armor, eyes glowing red, weapons that hummed with deadly energy. They marched like machines, precise and merciless. Rylon watched them come and shook his head. "I've got nothing to give them but rusted bones and regrets." "You have more," Alira said firmly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have me. You have us. And together, we'll show them that kindness is not weakness." She tossed him a sleek, alien-crafted rifle, lighter and deadlier than any human weapon. Rylon caught it, his muscles remembering the old days of war. "Guess hiding's not an option anymore," he muttered with a grim smile. Alira's own smile returned, fierce and proud. "No, today, we fight." Together, the ruins shook harder as the Zavaks approached, their growls and commands echoing like thunder. But for the first time in years, Rylon stood tall, not just as a scavenger, but as a man worth fighting for. And beside him stood the alien girl he had once saved, now his protector, his ally, and his friend. The storm was coming, but Rylon was ready to face it. The first blast struck the ground like a hammer, sending dust and debris flying into the air. Rylon ducked behind a broken pillar, the alien rifle heavy in his hands but balanced perfectly. His heart raced not just with fear, but with purpose. Beside him, Alira stood tall, her blade glowing with a vibrant blue energy. Around them, her Vyari warriors moved like shadows, forming defensive lines, their eyes never leaving the enemy. The Zevaks advanced, monstrous and relentless. Their armor looked alive, pulsing with dark energy, their faces hidden behind snarling masks. They weren't just here to capture, they were here to annihilate. Alira's voice rang through the air, clear and sharp. "Hold the line. Protect Rylan at all costs." The Viari responded in unison, their weapons lighting up the ruins with brilliant flashes. Energy bolts and plasma arcs cut through the air, but the Zaps pushed forward, shrugging off losses. There. Red eyes burning with hatred, Rylan peeked from cover, his hands steady on the rifle. He spotted a Zevik, aiming straight for Alira's back. Without thinking, he fired. The alien rifle recoiled with a hum, the shot piercing the Zevak's chest. And dropping the beast instantly, Alira turned, eyes wide for a moment, then she smiled. "You're a quick learner, human," Rylan chuckled breathlessly. "Guess I'm not as rusty as I thought." The battle raged on. Explosions tore apart ancient walls. Energy blasts sent bodies flying, and the air was thick with smoke and screams. But through it all, Alira fought like a storm given form. Her blade danced through the enemy, each strike precise and deadly. She fought with purpose, every move driven by the memory of a starving child saved by a stranger. Rylan stayed close, covering her back, his old instincts awakening. For the first time in years, he felt alive, not just surviving, but fighting for something real. The Zevaks began to falter, realizing the Viari were more formidable than they expected. But just as hope sparked, a deafening roar echoed across the battlefield. From the largest Zevak ship, a monstrous figure emerged taller, armored in black obsidian, with a crimson cape flowing behind him. Threx, the warlord of the Zevaks, his presence silenced the battlefield. Even the Viari stiffened, their weapons raised, but their eyes wary. Threx pointed a massive blade at Rylan. "Give us the human, and we may spare your bones, Viari." Alira stepped forward, her blade raised high. "You'll have to kill me first." Threx's laughter was deep and cruel. "Then you'll die for a human who doesn't even know his worth." Rylan stepped beside Alira, raising his rifle. His voice was rough but clear. "I may not know why you want me, but I know this time done running, and I'm not alone anymore." The battlefield held its breath. Then, with a roar of defiance, the Viari charged again, this time with Rylan at their side. The fight wasn't just for survival anymore. It was a battle born of gratitude, of promises kept, of bonds stronger than fear. And as Rylan fought, he realized a single piece of food, given in kindness, had led to this memento war, a family and a purpose he never knew he had. Smoke curled in the air, rising from the battered ruins like the breath of a dying beast. The ground was scorched, littered with wreckage, broken weapons, and the bodies of the fallen Zevaks and Viari alike. But the battle was over. Threx, the mighty warlord, lay defeated, his obsidian armor cracked, his lifeless body half buried beneath the rubble. Rylan stood there, his body aching, his hands trembling from exhaustion. The alien rifle hung loosely at his side, its power cells nearly drained. His old heart pounded, but not from fear, from pride. For the first time in years, he felt worthy of the life he'd stubbornly held on to. Alira approached him, her armor scratched and stained, but her silver eyes still bright, still alive. She removed her helmet, letting her silver hair fall free in the wind. "You stood your ground, Rylan," she said with a warm smile. "You didn't just survive, you fought." Rylan chuckled, wiping blood from his forehead. "Didn't know I had it." "In me, you did," Alira replied softly. "You've always had it in you. That kindness you showed me when you had nothing that was strength, the kind of strength this galaxy rarely sees." She glanced around at the remaining Viari warriors, who stood watching them with quiet respect. Then she turned back to Rylan, her voice turning serious yet gentle. "I came here to repay a debt, to protect you. But I realize now, it was never just about repayment. It was about bringing you back where you belong. With us, Rylan raised an eyebrow. With you? What does that mean? Alira extended her hand, her expression sincere. Come with us. The Viari have many worlds and many enemies. But we also have purpose, a future. You don't belong to these ruins anymore. You belong among the stars, with people who will fight. By your side, not because they owe you, but because they believe in you. For a long moment, Rylan stared at her hand. The ruins had been his prison, his graveyard for years. But here was a path, a future he thought had died long ago, offered by the very girl he once saved with his last piece of food. With a slow breath, he reached out and took her hand. All right, Commander, let's see those stars you've been talking. About Alira's smile widened, her grip firm. Welcome home, Rylan. As the Viari ship ascended into the sky, leaving the dead world behind, Rylan stood among them not as a relic of the past, but as a man reborn. And somewhere deep inside, he knew kindness may be small, but its echoes can change destinies. This was no longer just a story of a gift given to a starving girl. It was the beginning of a new legend,